And our goal was to come up in a distant future with a house which would be zero energy. So we are convinced that this cannot be achieved just by focusing on the facade alone, and we come up with a set of measures which are organized in a systematic strategy. And our strategy is to first focus on reducing energy demand, which can be done by modifying social behavior and by reducing losses. The second thing, we need to just reducing energy demand wouldn't get you to zero energy. We need to produce energy. So this can be done by using renewables. And the third thing that we can do is to recover energy which is coming out of our household. So these are the three methods that we're going to be implementing. And to make this implementation softer for a user, we're going to be doing this in a large temporal scale in stages. Maybe here, we can continue.
I will continue. Actually, the most important thing is that there are two beliefs. The government thinks it's very important to reduce energy demand and to decrease emission, but for the user it's very important to have a comfortable life, and he is not really necessarily bothered by that. So we went into Rotterdam, and actually maybe it's good to sketch the situation. This is the buildings that we are trying to redevelop. So just for the background, keep that in mind. And as Sophia already said, we want to achieve some kind of staged process. So that's a very slow process to get the user along and to make sure that the user starts to believe in, the goods of what the government wants. But how we want to do that is by delivering a service that's scalable. So first it starts with users that need to make the switch. Now, okay, how to do that I will explain one moment later. But we call it some kind of all-in-one renting principle. So that means that you not only pay your rent, but also pay your energy bills, your water bills, all the energy-related bills directly to the owner of your house. And then, the sum should be pretty much the same as what people pay now. So in the first stage, the renting index, and let's say the current situation is renting index 100, so it doesn't decrease really much. It's like 100 or 95% because people need to have some kind of cheaper alternative. So what should they use for? Should they choose for this alternative? It's cheaper and more sustainable. Okay, you have to explain it, of course, but that will be right. And we can, for example, provide people with environmental saving. Saving lights like LEDs or like other smart messages. There's a last dragon, maybe. Did you catch a train? But the most important thing is that people not only get words, but they get concrete. And this concrete is that they get an improved balcony. This balcony they have to share. I think you will explain a bit more about it. But they have to share this balcony with their direct neighbors. And because it's very important to create some kind of awareness among everybody and some kind of group feeling that that in later stages they can spend or they can share the expenses. So they can choose a design, for example, with their neighbor for the balcony, and they can choose for they can pick a function like do you want to have a garden there, or do you want to have a social space, or do you want to have some kind of food growing space. And I think the balconies, you can explain a bit more about it.
Well, for the first stage, we're planning on doing a low-cost intervention onto the facade. Here, the buildings have two terraces and the gap in between them. So what we're going to do is connect those two terraces with an additional platform which interlocks, so with the existing balcony, so it's easy to install. The residents don't need to move or anything. It can be done from the outside, no problem, easily. You just bolt it down onto the balcony, and it becomes part of the balcony structure, and it's lightweight out of metal. And here you can see a plan where it's you actually add the extension of the balcony plus the connection between the two neighbors, which is the start of the community idea inside of the whole Awesome.
So the first phase is about creating this connectedness between people and creating awareness. So we can go to the second stage, and in the second stage it's about investment, because this is a really big building change, and there are all kinds of adding additional technologies that you can use, like solar panels, like heat keepers, and they are really costly. So people have to afford it together. How can it work? For example, you can make some kind of leasing structure, some leasing service, where the price of these measurements is pretty high. But when people start sharing this investment, then the price will drop, and eventually, maybe if 5 or 6 neighbors join, then it may mean that the rent drops underneath the current price. So it's both beneficial for the renters and beneficial for the environment, for the government, because they get closer to their goals. Yeah, how do balconies work? You can explain.
The second strategy of the balconies is to extend that community mentality. So after becoming independent balconies into a connecting balcony, we extend horizontally throughout the whole facade, creating a corridor, thank you, where the residents can grow food or have their own community garden and community space to interact, and continue the idea of a shared space and reduction of emissions, and they grow their own food, less services. You need to help the idea, the mentality of the sustainable mentality as a community.
So, and then the next step, if the community decides to take one step more, so one step more towards a lower rent, then they have really to act together. So they are kind of used to this group feeling and to doing things with a group. And then we think it can be some kind of game, so people can compete with other houses or other blocks. So how can that work? If you install some kind of smart meter, you can install it in the previous phase so people can get used to it, and then in the next phase you can use it as your comparison tool. So these people have now some kind of awareness in their energy behavior, and with the smart meter they can compare if they are doing good or not, and they can it really creates some kind of group feeling because you're competing together. This next step is about real cost reduction, energy-wise, for the renter. But the investment needs to be done. And you can explain a bit more about the facade.
Well, the idea is to complete the modules that we have created horizontally, to close them also vertically, like to allow also the facilities installed in the roof, solar panels or other water facilities, and to make an integral prototype or system that works within all every module of the house. I mean, the staircase is there are several staircases in every building, so every area would be covered by a prototype, one of our prototypes, which covers 3 stories and 2 apartments. Yeah, so it deals with covering, like we will need to prototype an assembly process of glazing and frames, and this is where also the community needs to be already aware of this investment, together investment.
And I think that
So the goal is we would like to create a community, bring the neighborhood together with the minimum impacts or changes made to the community, with the less investment, and step by step create a sustainable solution, reduce their energy consumption, at the same time, most importantly, is increase their comfortness in their living environment. I think that's our goal towards the future, and I think with our plan we can really make some